Welcome to this special edition of our AppDev Summit series, where we dive deep into the trends, the tools, and the technologies that shape the modern application development landscape. During the AppDev Summit at theCUBE, we've seen a powerful convergence of platform simplicity, developer productivity, AI acceleration, and DevSecOps first thinking. With me today is Betty from Heroku. Betty, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Paul. How are you?
Great to have you on. It's always great to talk to you.
Always. And I see that we both have little Codys in our backgrounds.
We do. Look at that. Get him right here. He's keeping
Love
me
it.
honest. He's keeping me, because today we're obviously turning the spotlight on Heroku, right? So we want to make sure that we have that, understanding. But, as a platform, as a service, the environment that continues to empower developers and streamline the path from idea to production, it really is accelerating businesses to help them move faster without compromising security or scalability, right? Heroku really always has had that developer first philosophy, and it's more relevant now than ever, especially when you think of things like AI and security. But like with regards to the AppDev Summit, we focused on day 0 all the way through day 2 at DevSecOps. We looked at efficiencies, we looked at exploring observability and cloud economics. But Heroku really offers that, compelling vantage point across the whole application lifecycle. And I'm really excited to unpack this and talk to you today about Heroku and how it's adapting and helping shape really this new era of secure, scalable, and AI-infused software development and delivery. And I'm really excited to have you here today. So, yeah. So, anything you want to share with the audience before we get going on the topics?
I mean, I think it's what we are seeing right now with the infusion of AI in kind of every aspect of technology. It's what's most interesting is it's obviously had a huge impact on the application development side, and what kind of apps we're building now. But it's one of those unique things that is fundamentally touching every layer of the stack, every possible facet. So it's like it's both vertical and horizontal at the same time. So it's moving tremendously fast, and I think that presents both opportunities and challenges for builders and operators.
Yeah, we were seeing the same thing in our research, Betty, when we were talking about that, where it lives in the stack, whether it's vertical or horizontal development. A lot of what we're seeing is the days of development in silos are kind of long since gone, right? You have to have this focus point of moving and releasing code on a regular cadence. We see in our research that 24% of organizations want to release code on an hourly basis, yet only 8% are able to do so because they run into things that are not, that slow them down, right? So when we think about this and we look at, Heroku has long been known for its developer-friendly abstraction layer, right, of the infrastructure. It's also, when we think about the context of day 0, right, we think about focus on simplicity and operational efficiencies. How is Heroku really reducing that cognitive, overhead and for developers while enabling them to scale with confidence?
Yeah. So when you think about a developer's time in kind of, an application, right? It's the act of writing the code or like, going from like their idea to how will I build this feature? How will I build this app? That part is kind of like the most creative aspects of their time, but that is such a small percentage of the time that they spend per day. So much of it is actually doing things like, in the past, it was like how long it took them to set up their development environment, right? Finding the right tools to use internally to get going on their project, and then the big wall getting to deployment. So what's interesting is there's a lot Heroku as a platform as a service. We're have this history of a great developer experience but it's actually a ton of stuff that we've done is around the platform side. Like as it needs to deploy and run, long-lived running of the application, that's really where we've spent a lot of our time to solve the problems and challenges because the application it hasn't come to life if it's not actually running, if it's not serving customer traffic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and speaking of that, what we find in our research in this App Dev Summit, we were finding that you're right. There's a lot of kind of complexities that organizations are overcoming, but what we're also seeing is like there's a streamlining or I guess a general adoption of the CI/CD pipelines and the CI/CD environments. Now, we know that not all organizations have a CI/CD pipeline. We know that that's really where a lot of organizations strive to go. But there is a level of that journey that organizations are on. So whether they have their app dev team or their platform team or the DevSecOps team, increasingly becoming table stakes, as that's really what organizations want to get to. When we think about Heroku's kind of involvement in this, regardless of where the organization is on their journey, whether they could be early in their journey and still have silos, or they could be fully mature and have a full CI/CD pipeline, how is the CI/CD pipeline approach ensuring things like automation or repeatability for developers?
Yeah, I think one of the important parts here is that when you look at your pipeline from build, integration and deployment is, like you said, with many organizations may have buckets, so each team has their own. Same thing with things like your underlying infrastructure, right? Compute network storage, all the what kind of data services will they use? What kind of AI services will they use? What we find is like organizations that are doing all of those in pockets, are you getting any sort of scale economy out of that, right? Because each application team is spending a ton of time. Those engineers are spending a bunch of time like managing that stuff themselves. And then they have to go build and deploy the application, right? So then you have inconsistencies in standards across your organization. On the other side is if for organizations that may be mature and have a robust pipeline, it is still like understanding now, like what is the ongoing value of doing that heavy lifting yourself? What is that taking away from that is actually driving business value? So from a Heroku perspective, we look at having that built in. We provide those things as a managed service. It's a managed service within the platform. So it's not only just the infrastructure, but it's all the DevOps tooling. And what we've done is taken best practices that are from the 12-factor app approach, and built that into Heroku and made that automated. So yes, those are what we call our opinions. Those opinions are, our opinions from our own experience in building and running, cloud services. But it is also in ways that helps customers be able to focus on the important part, the apps. So every time you do a new, every time there's a code change, a new commit, it's going to automatically auto build. Auto build a new image. It's going to be a layered image, so you have a software bill of materials, and then it's going to go through a CI and CD. It's going to deploy to a staging environment. We always create two environments, staging and production. So it goes to a staging environment so that the testing happens first. They can do a sanity check. Is it operating as designed before they deploy it to production? Promote it to production. So all of those little things. You have consistent environments. You have this automated pipeline that's already provided for you, that's already integrated and connected, which make that whole process, much faster for teams.
Yeah, Betty, that's you hit on a couple of really important points here, right? Because one of the things we're seeing out of the research from the AppDev Summit, where we're finding that I've been doing these studies for a number of years, and I've seen trending information, right? Back in 2022. We were seeing that integrated testing, only 29% of organizations were doing integrated testing, but that number jumped up to an astonishing 66% in this year. So like, to your point, there's a need to do the testing as part of that release cycle. Of course, we all know this, but a lot of organizations, what they were doing, which was a challenge, was they were using almost their clients as the test bed, right? And the justification was, well, we do sprint reviews, so we'll just update it every 2 weeks and it's all good. But the reality of it is you and I both know that if you're in an airport and you're trying to pull up a ride app and that ride app doesn't work, you go to another one and you're probably not going back, right? So that's a challenge. So that, yeah, I'm 100% in alignment with that optimization there of making sure you have that test environment and making sure the release cycle is more streamlined. But there's other things. When I talk to CIOs in the study here, we were finding that application modernization is key, right? That's probably the number one thing that organizations want to achieve, right? The two complexities that they run into, two things that they run into is complexity and skill gap issues. But a lot of times what they'll do is they'll throw a bunch of money at a project because there's incredible pressures for the organization to modernize. But what we found in the AppDev Summit is there's application efficiencies, as you were talking about, right? That is a key factor here, and cloud economics and observability play into it as well. So you can take those actionable insights. So as we look at the day two data, right, and we emphasize observability, cloud span, and performance tuning, how does Heroku really help organizations and the developer velocity as well as performance, especially as those application footprints grow across different regions too?
Yeah, and I'm going to start off with you said cloud economics, which is one of the areas that I would like to think about this is platform economics, right? When you see organizations are like, we're going to modernize, we're now going to we have a large budget to do this whole modernization initiative for their applications. Sometimes a huge part of that investment goes to modernizing their underlying platform, right? Doing that part, because you cannot have modern apps if they're not running on modern infrastructure or using modern principles underneath. And then you think about the percentage of resources spent where. If you have truly an application modernization initiative, you want as much of those resources and time and budget to go to the time spent on actually looking at your application components. What needs to be rewritten? Is this an opportunity to re-platform certain components, right? And maybe move to different, more modern data or operating system layers, those types of things, or taking advantage of different types of app architectures that may be better suited for your customer apps. A big area on the economics angle is for us to flip that script. Goes back to what do we provide as a baseline platform? What is built in? What is automated? What are the components that we put in our platform and that we manage for you from a selection, integration, security, and automation perspective, so that the customers are spending the bulk of their time and energy on the application, because that's really what's going to keep their customers' attention and drive revenue. And so we are doing the platform economics at a scale across our thousands and thousands of customers, and then the automation, the auto scaling, and the automation that we've built in really help customers be able to use the right amount of resources at the right time based on the load on that application.
Yeah, and that's incredibly important when we think about efficiencies, right? Because as we look at this modernization strategy, this little thing called AI is popping up everywhere. I don't know why.
Never heard of it.
But I mean, that is definitely impacting the developer experience, right? I mean, if we don't have these economics across the platform, if we don't have those commonalities so we can have views across the entire ecosystem, that would change how the AI integration is deployed. And when we look at the developer experience, right, and we look at the AI enhanced development tools growing, that's a theme that was really echoed across the AppDev Summit. We were finding that AI tooling it's the kind of the screwdriver and drill approach, right? Like which is how you're going to do this faster, but is it faster? And I think I want to kind of debunk one thing here is AI is going to take everybody's developer jobs. That's not going to happen. I mean, there's still going to need a way to use AI to have better efficiencies at your role, but there's still going to need to have the innovation and developers in place. So when we think about Heroku and enablement of, or I should say enablement or planning of the AI native, application development or AI assisted development platforms, how is the developer workflows really being enhanced by AI on the platform?
I think there's a few areas in this. There's one in the AI infrastructure, right? Making those AI services accessible and part of the experience so that developers can get easy access to them in a controlled way, right? Because these things need to be governed, right? Just like you would govern access to infrastructure, networks, etc. So that's really where, from a managed inference and those those large models, foundation models, we have provided that as part of the Heroku experience now. So they're part of the platform. And talked about earlier about wrapping around automation and best practices, right? So now with the consistent Heroku experience, developers are able to get access to powerful foundation models, but Heroku is handling some of the configurations so that they're not fiddling around with additional identity or how do I set this up? That part is part of the experience. On the other side, there's a whole new wave of AI native like developer tools. Things like, let's say like MCP, right? These are tools to participate in the AI ecosystem, as well as things like tools like Cursor, Windsurf, those Claude Desktop, right? That have fundamentally changed how people build. So we are, from a Heroku perspective, is we are continue to expand, look at this growing ecosystem and expand to support them. So first, let's look at those AI native tools like the IDE types, right? That is, we support those in a way that people can be building something on Cursor and then be able to deploy directly to Heroku and then manage from there. So that, it's continuing to show up in the interfaces that the builders are. I think it's important to understand that these new tools, these AI kind of code gen tools, they're fundamentally changing who is a builder. It has and it's changing the life cycle to prototype. So getting to that first prototype that we may want to put into that first staging environment, test environment to play around with, that's changing. It's not that developers being replaced by AI, but we're allowing more people to participate in this economy of that. They may not know how to write code, but they have an idea on what an experience should look like. And they're going to be able to spec that out in a way that fundamentally is going to dramatically increase the sheer volume of applications that are written. And these are also going to be less technical builders. Do we want them having direct access to infrastructure and defining configurations? No. So having constrained platform type of environments are going to smooth that process too. And then making sure that there's a test environment and prod allows for the appropriate governance and checks along the way from the right specialists.
Yeah, I really like that answer, Betty, because what our research was showing out of the AppDev Summit is over the next 2 years, AI production workloads, and specifically at the edge, but we're seeing the growth of 500 to over 1,000 AI production workloads happening at different, additional workloads and different applications being developed. So you're absolutely right, and it's not going to be the professional developer; it's going to be the citizen developer or the lines of businesses doing the work, and they need those governance, they need controls, they need the regulations and the controls in place. They don't need to be adding storage and configuring things in the networking switches. That's not what they should be doing at all. But I think when we look at how to find out, coming to the end here, looking at Heroku's evolving in the app dev stack, as we touched on here, organizations are adopting multi-platform or polyglot strategies, and we see that Heroku historically was viewed as only this one language, just only this one thing, but now it's not, right? And we want to kind of make sure that we understand, the audience understands here, that it's a modern application development stack that is really came up a lot through the AppDev Summit, but Heroku is incredibly relevant in the cloud modernization, but also Kubernetes dominated narrative. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. We originally started back in 2007 as Ruby on Rails, right? Helping get those apps to the cloud and really aligning to supporting that that language and that framework. We are now at 9 different languages. So covering all the major languages that folks are working in, and then continuing to expand how we support different types of workloads and different types of app architectures, like adding Jupyter notebooks and Streamlit. It's really it's any kind of workload, any type of lots of different types of architectures, front end, back end. So it's really around how do we help get those ideas to life faster?
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a lot happening there, and these environments are converging from those heritage applications to more, present state when you have, containerization and cloud native states, but also those heritage environments are, maybe being encapsulated as systems of record. So there's a lot of kind of bridging the gap between old and new, right? So that has to occur. Betty, we're at time. I'd love to talk to you all day on this. This is a really, topic that's near and dear to my heart, obviously, and I know that you're very passionate about it. But any closing thoughts you want to leave with the audience?
I think this is a really exciting time to see what's possible with human creativity. I think the AI tooling is what it's bringing. It's empowering more people and lowering the barrier to entry into building software for more people. you said it earlier, this whole thing of like, is it going to take everyone's jobs? And I don't think so. I think what is changing is like the currency is going to be creativity. And those platforms that empower that creativity to become something real, either as software or a physical good faster, is really what's going to win out. And that's really focusing on that simplicity and enabling the acceleration for these types of creatives are really where we're focused.
Yeah, that's exciting. And it really is powerful too, because it really helps, it really does enable the businesses to achieve their goals, their business KPIs. I'm really excited to see where Heroku's going in the future as well. Thank you for joining me today. This has really been great. And thank you to all of you that tuned in. We really appreciate you being part of the AppDev Summit community. And that wraps up this episode. But please feel free to tune into the rest of the series with conversations driving tools, trends, and talents that shape the application development landscape. Whether you're deploying at the edge, building with AI, or modernizing your cloud stack, we've got you covered. Be sure to follow us on social. If you have any thoughts, questions, or just want to connect, you can always reach me at pauln@siliconangle.com. Until next time, stay curious and stay building. Thanks.